while we're all here, if that's all right. Hi, I'd like to connect to the... okay, so let's start with the session, and I'm going to start with this is how it's going to work. So it's going to be a very casual session just to introduce Daniel. And Daniel, thank you so much for agreeing to come to this and share your experience and knowledge. The reason why I really wanted this was to help those who are going and working as business architects in the different fields, because there's so many. I mean, it could be utilities, it could be finance, it could be whatever. But Daniel's got a wealth of experience, and just to give you some advice around what are the things that you could look at, where you could go with your career further, how it might all work together. And so it's going to be a general discussion. I've got a couple of questions and then we'll open it up to the floor. Daniel's put together some presentation material and he's got some resources that he can pull out just to help if he needs to have some, well, I suppose just to help if there is more information required. Is that a good summary, Daniel?
It sure is. Hi, Deirdre.
Hi. So just simply, Daniel, would you mind just introducing yourself to the group and just telling us a little bit more about you before we go into any of the detail around business architecture? And you've got some, so Daniel is an entrepreneur amongst many other things, but can you just give us a little bit of your story?
Yep. I'm 58 for those that wonder.
I won't tell my age, by the way.
And I have, I've seen a lot of things. I started by, I have a master's degree in finance, and I'm a business stakeholder, as we would say in business architecture, as opposed to an IT stakeholder. But I've been surrounded all of my life by IT folks, extremely brilliant people. My first jobs were venture capitalist, investing in small technology firms. And there's one that you may know called Taleo, which is a Canadian company who was later sold to Oracle for a few $1 billion and does SaaS business application for HR. And there are a few more successes that I've been involved with, but not as spectacular as this one. I've been I would consider myself a business architect since about 6 or 7 years when I joined Iris Business Architect. They have an application which did strictly business architecture 7 years ago, and now it is linking, integrating all aspects of enterprise architectures, which is more like data architecture, like application and technology architecture, to business architecture. It's also become much more agile, linking requirements, linking projects, linking epics, linking user stories to the business architecture. And that was done through requests of our clients that we've had over the years. Those are some of them. If you can see my screen, they vary a lot, depend on size, and all of them have had special requests. Well, most of them have had special requests, and which we oblige within a few months. And that's how we've become not just a business architecture tool, but I would consider ourselves the glue between ServiceNow, between maybe other EA tools, between requirement management tools, between project management tools, and we're kind of the glue to plan everything out.
So just a question. So you went from venture capitalist to business architect, which is quite a shift. How did that happen? Like, why did you go from that to that?
Well, I was not an operator, and I was providing money, and I felt that I needed to contribute somehow. And as a venture capitalist, I, I was a on customers
Mm. You
for
buffering a
the
bit.
startups I was involved with, but I had never won my and and I wanted to do one. And after a few sessions with my partner Alain Picard, my colleague, we agreed that we would do this. And I've been at it for 7 years now, and I don't regret it, although it's been tougher than I thought, a lot tougher. But now we're uh, uh, it, uh, getting very good at it, and we're getting a lot of traction. But the first few years were tougher.
Mm. Mm. Like for most entrepreneurs, I suppose.
It's always longer than you anticipate.
Yes, yes, you wish it would be quicker. So when you went into the field of business architecture, because obviously being quite different, what was it like in the beginning? So there are a lot of people who are either new or just started in that field. What was it like in the very beginning? What did it look like?
Well, when I started doing business architecture,
Mm,
or because um, we got into business architecture because a client requested it. Our first client was the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. That's how we started 7 years ago. And the Business Architecture Guild, which is behind the BizBox standard,
mhm,
wanted a software to replicate their framework and or their meta model, like they like to say. And that's how we started. Uh, and At the beginning, I didn't know much, but I'm a quick learner and I have business experience, which most technical people lack. Many business architects are ex-technical folks. And So my expertise was quickly requested by some of our clients, this with our software most of the time.
mm. And how did you find, so you were, so in the beginning, you were kind of asked for it, but how did you find the uptake into different organizations? Because for a lot of companies, business architecture is new. And when you use new language, people don't really know what you're talking about. So it's pretty new in New Zealand. And so how do you introduce that into organizations? How do they see the value of having a business architect work with them? How does that work?
Okay, well, I'll start by saying who are the users of our tool typically.
Mm,
I'd say almost half are business architects. I'd say the rest is split between enterprise architects, which are more technical, and business analysts.
mm,
And those that are, in my point of view, good at business architecture, at using our tool, are business analysts. They use our tool very well, as opposed to big strategists who can talk extremely well, do fancy diagrams, but strangely enough, they don't go into details often. And by some kind of magic, it's going to happen. And the business architect behind, well, makes it happen, makes sure that the eye points, business strategies that are discussed get disseminated horizontally and vertically throughout the organization. And those business architect or business analysts are good at that. They're very good. And they have the humility that it takes to be a business architect. You talk to very important people, and you got to be listening. Your opinions do not matter usually, and you got to be able to replicate and disseminate what they're saying to lower levels within the organizations.
Mm.
And you got to use neutral techniques to find weaknesses within the enterprise. And therefore, you got to put your ego in a box and forget about your ego a lot. And you got to be a good listener, both to business stakeholders, and talk their language, and then go back and talk to IT stakeholders and try to talk their language, and avoid as much as possible talking business architecture. It's strange enough. So you don't say, here's my value proposition. You don't say, here's my capability. They don't care about that.
Yeah.
They care about business issues, and at the other hand, they care about their apps. And so you got to try and level up with them. So I'll go to an article that I wrote, and so here. And what's imperative when you do business architecture? I remember one of our first clients built all those capabilities, and he had a few hundreds of them and measured them, and did not link them to any initiatives. And after a year, he had nothing to show, no ROI, and they had to find another job because people didn't understand the point. So it's important to do stuff that will be important for the person that is sponsoring you. And usually the sponsor is a high-ranked business stakeholder or a high-ranked IT stakeholder. And they have pains, they have issues, and you got to be able to solve them using business architecture, selecting the best initiative or the best projects that can bring real return on investment, and deliver real business outcomes in a finite time frame. And that's imperative. If you do not do that, you will not become essential. And if you do not become essential, it's tougher.
Yeah. Yes, I imagine it will be. So talking about this, let's just break it down into what do you believe would relate to the biggest successes in business architecture versus what would be your biggest pitfalls in architecture. And maybe if you can give us an example using one of your clients where you feel that kind of gives you a good idea of how that would work.
Yeah. Can you view this business case with the green logo?
Yeah.
This is a bank. They're probably now closer to 90,000 employees. They've got 17 business units. And 3 years ago, they started doing business architecture in one business unit. And they had successes there. And then we moved on to a second business unit. Now we've done about 6 or 7. And this year we anticipate doing a lot more, just because we're now SaaS-based. In other words, all the features that we have on the downloadable version is now available on the browser, which is a lot more secure. And I'm telling you, banks are extremely secure. They have billions of dollars to protect, and so they're extremely fussy about security, rightfully so. And so we anticipate many more now that we have our browser-based software ready. And the thing that happens there is the first 6 months, well, the first 3 to 6 months are terrible because you pick people's brain and then you build stuff and then you don't have much to show. But then when you start having your model set up for a few initiatives and you link the applications, you link the strategies, you link the proper section of your organization to it, and then you build your business architecture model, people go and view it a lot. And what's strange is business stakeholders will take a look at it. They'll probably ask you to do fancy diagrams and stuff, but they'll go and view it once in a while, as little as once a month only, as opposed to those that are delivering stuff. In those cases, they go on it every day. They watch your data every day. So they ask you around, they have comments, they participate, they enhance your model when they think you're wrong, and it becomes much more iterative with time, and you become essential. Once you've proven success with a few initiatives, and that you reuse part of what you've done for that initiative for something else, and then build some new content, and then go on from initiatives to another, and then you until you have a much larger organization. That's what happened to them.
Have you experienced where you have the kind of the leadership kind of having a different perspective versus on the ground, the people who are actually doing the work having a different take on, and that obviously all those different paradigms having a different take on how you model and how you produce your outputs. Have you had a scenario of that nature?
Well, odds are high that if you don't have a sponsor at a high level, odds that you'll deliver are low, because it will be terrible, extremely difficult for you to gather the reality of your business. And it's tempting at times for enterprise architects to be in their little corner, build something that they think is right, and that has not been really tested or by business stakeholders, and it's way off track. I've seen it a lot, especially in governments. In governments, they tick a task and that's it, it's done, which is not the case. I've seen people in the federal government of our country saying, I can do anything I want. Nobody checks, and that's because she doesn't have sponsorship from the top, and it's important that you do, and then if objectives may change, tactics may change, because the reality is they're based on what the competition is doing. And when you need to react differently midway into the delivery of your initiative, it's really not uncommon for agile companies and agile delivery projects to tweak whatever you're doing to make sure that you deliver what has been altered because of the competitions, and you need to react. So all of this is very necessary, and confrontation between business stakeholders and IT stakeholders is normal. It's part of communication, and changing data and changing course is more and more frequent since things are moving so quickly, and you need to adjust at all times. Did I answer your question?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
So is it okay if I jump in with a related question?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So yeah, you said you know, sort of like you need to know when to change course, or at least you need to be able to change course. Can you give an example of a circumstance where you've had to pull the plug on an approach that you were using and either withdraw from an organization or change course, change tactics for the way that you were dealing with the organization?
Yes, there's a company that I cannot mention, but you may be seeing their logo right now. They have agile projects. They have lots of money using SAFe. They have teams, 100 people teams. They call them trains, agile release trains. And every 6 months, they re-evaluate the priority of their projects. And some are let go, some are stay or have more resources, and they decide that every 6 months. So they may have been pulling or putting a lot of energy into a project. They're halfway there, and then after 6 months, boom, they let go of it and focus on something else. And they do that every 6 months. Did I answer your question?
I was sort of, I think, more interested in terms of your approach as in getting people to adopt business architecture. Whereas when you're initially engaging with an organization and then circumstances changed or your approach had to change, what were the signals that you picked up on and how did you react?
Well, the signals are from the business stakeholders. Okay, let's be clear about that. And it's usually competition. The delivery of items is becoming more and more important. So competition dictates what needs to be done. And you learn or you see the behavior of your competitors change far more quicker now than before. And that's why you need to adjust quickly. Now, the job of a business architect is not to set up those strategies. It's to disseminate the strategies that are in place or to fulfill strategies that are missing based on strategies that already exist. But you know, the business architect is not the one setting up those strategies. They just don't. And if the boss decides that that strategy is not valid anymore and something else is, because can't find any people, because don't have any resources, or because the competition is aggressively eating the market of one of their products, you know, that's what signals those changes. But I'm repeating it again. It's not the business architect that is signaling that and twisting those strategies. They're just disseminating it. You know, if someone says it at eye level, well, what does it mean at lower levels? And that's the business architect's job.
I think maybe I'll elaborate a little bit here, and thanks everyone for your questions. So if I understand correctly, Daniel, basically, you know, there's two problems that we're dealing with as business architects. And so let's just put our BARC hats on. The first is we really want to be able to work within organizations so that we can influence, so that we can have better change. But because a lot of people don't even know that this is a thing, then it's quite hard to say, go to your boss or go to whoever the executive team is and go, hey, we want to bring business architecture into the company because we think it'll help with our project. So that's problem one, which is fundamentally saying, hey, you know, how do we actually show the benefit? Now, I'm going to give you a personal example. Just sometimes when people are already working in that environment, if they can start capturing some of those, what we call capabilities and blueprints and so forth for people to work with, it's kind of show them, not tell them that we can do those things. So that's one of the advice that I would give to people. So that's the first thing. And I think everyone's trying to figure that out, because in New Zealand, it is quite new. And just for those who are locally in Australia or New Zealand, there are a few tenders that have recently gone out for business architects and business architecture software. So it's not as new as you think. It's just to be aware that is some of the stuff to consider. Then the next thing is, when you are working on a project, and this is where I 100% agree with you, Daniel, is that it's not your baby. This is what I keep saying to people. It's the strategic team to come up with a strategy, and it's your role to help mentor, guide that in terms of the information you can provide, the insights that you have. But if they decide that they want to roll out something else, then it's their baby, and that's the way that we work in terms of, as a role of the business architect. The same with people who want to build a house, whether or not they like what the architect's drawn, that person has got to draw what the customer wants. And so it's an influencing role, it's a design role, it's a change role, but it's not necessarily the person who makes the decision. I don't know if you feel that that's kind of an accurate way of describing it, Daniel?
Deirdre, I couldn't have said it better. It's exactly like the house. And when the couple wants it this way, the architect, well, he may think otherwise, but it's going to be the way the couple wants it. That's it. That's all. Now, about finding a sponsor, a business stakeholders, it's imperative that you find the pains of your organization. People don't think of it, but going in annual reports, you'll find a lot of stuff there. And I remember with one of our client, a government organization, we wrote a business review with them and a business case with them. And I laid out all the business strategies that they had to go through. And he said, "Where in the hell did you find that?" And I said, "I Googled it, and there it is on your webpage. It's all there." And I just cut and paste and put it in the document. And he said, "I didn't know." Well, you'd be surprised if you Google stuff, what you will find. Sometimes on SlideShare, you'll find a heavy weight within your company that has shared something, and it's all there. The PowerPoint is all there, and you'd be surprised. And when you go and try to build your business architecture team, and you're starting, you got to have a good pitch, a very good pitch. You've got to know the pains of the organization. Is it that their projects are delivered late and they always miss the business outcome? That's an easy grab. If you can prove that only 20% of them are useful, well, then that's a lot of waste of money. If you can get that percentage to 40, you're going to generate tons of money for your organization. You'll be superstars. Fixing priorities based, it's all there. Fixing priorities based on business strategies. You'd be surprised of IT teams fixing priorities on a pro rata base, and the one who yells the most gets the most. I've seen that a lot, and not based on increasing customer value. I've seen that a lot. Eliminating silos and increasing communication between business and IT, or between departments. I've dealt with Apple once, and it was a nightmare. Apple, they have the one of the best brands on earth, but for $20 that they had charged me, I had to go on 3 of their systems. different apps. It was extremely painful to do. Apple, for crying out loud. And all of this for 20 bucks. Okay, and not even American bucks, Canadian bucks. You know, they're closer to the New Zealand one. Okay, what else?
All right. So Daniel, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is Henry here. I have a quick one. So if we go down one level, we found our sponsor right now. We've established the business case. The business case has been bought by a senior executive within the organization, for example. I would like to find out from your experience. There's a big disconnect between strategy and execution in terms of IT projects that are delivered. So when we bring in business architecture, from your experience, I would like to find out how do we get business architecture to make projects deliver better, for example? So how does the governance work? How do we inject business architecture into the governance framework to say, okay, this is a strategy. Business architecture is translating that into a set of deliverable initiatives or sequenced programs and projects, for example. But how do we determine what we deliver at the end of the day so that they match strategy? What's your experience?
Well, you at the end of the day, you may have analyzed your enterprise and found 20 projects that could be completed, and maybe 30. You need to prioritize them based on priority. If it's high priority, low performance, and the fix is easy to do, choose this one first. And then but it's got to be high priority. And then if performance is weak, but it's difficult to do, choose this one second. And forget about those that are high priority or doing well. And often you'll base it on capabilities, either, and then you'll link a project to this initiative. And then it may be, if it's a big capability, you may want to split this capability at level 2 or 3 so that it's feasible in a reasonable time frame, and try not to do everything at once. It's imperative that your first initiatives, once you start, is short, no more than a year, and easy for everyone to understand that it's important. And then you forget the rest. As you get bigger, you do more, and then you sort you sort your initiatives. And at the end of the day, some are never done because they never get on the top.
Okay. So do we get mandate to be able to? I'm talking about trying to introduce business architecture into a new as a new way of doing things into an organization. So how do we get business architects to be part of the governance framework such that they can have a yes or a no for initiatives that need to go or not go, kind of thing, in your experience?
Maybe I'll show this. See what I've been saying there. For example, here you look at a customer journey map, and then you correspond a value stream to this customer journey map, and you come up with this detailed value stream, which has enabling capabilities. Many of them are very high priority, and they are also measured by performance heat map and business complexity. And then you sort them by priority, and then those that are red, you sort them again by performance. Those that are not performing well, guess what? You should do them first. And then those are high priority, but they're performing green. Don't focus on those. Now, so in this case, you don't say to them, you need to focus on capability 21.2. They don't give a crap about that. But they do care about financial instrument valuation. If you're a wealth management company, that's critical. That is critical. And believe me, they pour a lot of money in there. and they're pouring a lot of AI in there. One day, AI will be selecting optimal portfolios for wealth managers. They probably are at some levels doing that currently. So that's how it's done. And then you eliminate a lot of capabilities that you need to look at. So for example, in the framework that we work with, there's almost 800 capabilities. If you look at only one value stream, which is imperative that you deliver better, then there's only 16 capabilities. Only 3 of them are problematic. So focus on those first. And then you look at the applications that are supporting each one of those capabilities and the databases that are supporting, and then you build a bunch of scenarios. In this case, there's 4 of them. I can send you this presentation, Deirdre, if some of your attendees wants this.
Yeah, please. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. I knew it would be useful, Deirdre.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, it's far more interesting, this slide deck, than my face, Deirdre.
Daniel, quick question.
Yes.
So there's a perception in different organizations I've seen that business architecture don't necessarily do the fancy diagrams, but are involved with business impact assessments, similar to change management, like the change impact assessments, or business architecture helps the business to, or the senior leaders to ideate ideas and help to shape what those ideas are before even strategies are written. What advice would you give around, the business architecture approach to help really lift the maturity of the organization?
Okay. Impact analysis are imperative, and it's an important thing that business architects need to do. I could show you diagrams. I don't think I have any here. No, I didn't put any. But there may be at different levels. The idea being is if you start doing a business, an initiative or a project that is touching this capability, you may not know it, but there may be another initiative going on, which is altering also that capability. So you may be doing stuff that are either similar or in contradiction, and you're not aware of it. And doing impact analysis will solve that problem, and it can be done at all kinds of levels. Our software is very good at doing impact analysis up to 7 levels deep, but then it's to me it's like Mandarin. I don't understand any of it. Keep it to 3 levels and you'll see a lot of impacts that you may have not been aware of it. Using business architecture. Did I answer somewhat your question?
Yes, you did. And just around the ideation piece for business architects, earlier in the piece we talked about that business architects are exactly that. We take the instruction from the business and we look on how we can implement or look at the impacts around to help shape then what the initiative is and what its return on investment could potentially be. But then is there, if that's a perception in an organization that architects only do that, how do you shift that perception to say, no, we actually do other things and we can take on a little bit more where there's, I don't know if I'm asking it correctly, but it's, leaders have a view, business architects do ABC, other areas of the organization say, oh, we don't really know what architects do, business architects do, we've never heard of it.
Okay, I was in a pharmaceutical. I'm not going to mention which one, but I'll say that the current president of the United States swallowed one of their pills to get rid of his COVID. And there was this bunch of portfolio managers, and they were begging for money. I don't have my fair share. That's all they could say. I don't have my fair share. And I said, that's not a good reason. There may be a reason why you're not getting your fair share. Maybe you didn't plan ahead. And silence. And then I said, and then I showed exactly the presentation I showed you, and I made real examples with value streams, with words that were 4 or 5 syllables long. I didn't understand any of it, but they did, and yet I could be there and sound intelligent, although I had no clue what I was. It was their laboratory, and they can put together 4-syllable words and pack them, 5 or 6 at a time, and they seem to understand each other. All I was is building those value streams and then pointing out to the problematic capabilities. And then I said, that's why you need your money. Put your numbers to the missing applications and stuff, and then you'll be able to say, I need that money. And not just say, I don't have my fair share. Who cares if you don't have your fair share? And in other words, business architecture puts a business intelligent frame set behind where to put your money. Another problem that happens a lot with business within enterprises is outsourcing IT. And it seems like a black hole and things do not get done. That's because you didn't plan ahead. If you had a good business architecture and planned ahead your initiatives, well, guess what? Outsourcers wouldn't be robbing you blind. It's a very common problem with many large organizations where the left arm has no clue what the right arm is doing. And like in politics, they stop talking to each other.
Just
need to talk to each other.
Just to add to that, there was a recent case. So one of the business architects, they really wanted to bring it into the organization, and it was hard. So they kind of designed the capabilities in the background. So creating the blueprints in the background without kind of the business knowing. And when it came to, so I'm going to actually just read the article. So by grouping a large group of databases and bespoke applications into capability categories at a high level, we were able to identify additional impacted stakeholders, business processes, and applications within 6 working days. This was to enable resource planning and project scoping for a large ERP replacement project. A similar exercise using conventional project management approaches like with business analysts and interviewing SMEs would take 4 months. And so managed to do all of that within 6 days because they already had the business architecture kind of not even at the level of detail that we would potentially want, but because of that. Is anyone there?
Oh yeah, I'm there.
No. So what I wanted to say with that is a lot of us are talking about trying to get that buy-in and that, but if you can start capturing those capabilities, and particularly those who are doing requirements for projects that are changing and projects that need to be changed, a great way to do that is to already have that set, as you said there, where you've got all of these, different stakeholders that want different things. But if you've got a set you can work with from the beginning, it's quite easy to be able to measure what is the key area to focus on. Okay, so we've got a few more questions here.
You're handling that.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Mm.
Yeah, so I'm a senior business analyst and I'm looking at becoming a business architect. What are the practical steps you would recommend I take?
Okay, first you need to be a member of the Business Architecture Guild. Second, try to read the BizBook. Once you've snored a few times and fallen asleep a few times, you will discover that following Agora Insights online courses may be worthwhile and provide a positive ROI in you getting certified. You may also want to read some of the material and the stuff that I generate, which, you know, there's we have built a channel that explains simply concepts that are in the BizBox mostly. I write in, where is that? Bear with me, I'm fighting with the Zoom menu. I wrote about 20 articles in CIO.com that you may want to read. Oh, I forgot to mention, well, okay, I'll put it there. I wrote a book. It's very affordable and it's starting to get good reviews. It's called Practical Guide to Agile Strategy Execution, where it blends business architecture with the rest, with business strategies, with program management, portfolio management, and with agile delivery and requirements and stuff. It blends everything into one, and it's $10 Canadian. Maybe $11 or $12 in New Zealand and Australia. It's not where that's not how the book is not how I'm feeding my kids, and it's worthwhile, I believe.
I think it is. I mean, it's one of the resources we've linked from our side as well to Daniel. So it's really good. From a BA to BArch is there isn't a huge amount of change. The key thing that I would say is you have to be a big picture thinking person. You have to be able to see the whole, you know, how the business is working. So not just singular units. That's the one side. So firstly, see if you have the right profile to shift from BA to BArch. And then secondly, it's just taking some of those skills and starting to apply, focusing on the capabilities first. That would be my advice, just to help with that transition, understand how capabilities work in an organization.
A business analyst who has poked around an organization in different business units and can take away his head mindset from a project to projects, you know, multiple projects. With at least 10 years of experience, has the potential of becoming a good business architect. And in the 7 tips about, is that where it is? Yeah. 7 tips on how to build a good company. You know, when you're building your team, it should be, you should hire internally, just because it'll be much easier to gather the info this way and writing in the company way. Every company has their own wording, and it's more important to stick to that wording than to comply 200% with BizBox. Okay, being able to being understood by the company is far more important. And if they use a bunch of 4-syllable words to write stuff, well, then you use those 4-syllable words, because that's what people understand within the organization. So a blend of IT and a blend of business stakeholders to begin with, and a blend of outside and internal people for your initial team of maybe 3 up to 5 business architects initially is ideal. So mixture and difference is far more important than, you know, my partner and I are so different in so many ways. He's more technical, I'm more business. I freak when I have more than 5 applications open at once. He freaks if he has less than 15. We're extremely different. But that's perfect. That's perfect. We are different, and having a business architecture team, which with people that are so different, is far better than everyone that looks alike and comes from the same background. It's imperative that no one comes from the same background.
There's a question here from Stefan. I find it annoying that you have to become a member of the Business Architecture Guild to get a BizBark copy. So we get it. We get that that's frustrating. Unfortunately, neither Daniel or I can have any influence on that. That's a completely separate organization to us. But you can have a look at like on our course, you do see the first module free, and there is a summary in there, and all of that's free. So you're welcome to have a look at that. The BizBook can be quite tough to read through. It really can be quite tough to read through. But I mean, obviously,
that's an understatement.
Yeah, Gordon and I've had a couple of conversations around this, haven't we? So yes, even as a training provider myself, I have my own struggles with, some of these things, but it is a source of understanding business architecture, and it has its value. And I think that's the key thing in this. But we do, when we do the training, we do work around the challenges around having access to material. So that is a key part of it.
I'll add the following. I'm afraid to say you'll need to pay the $125 to get the BizBark. I think you could pull it off just going through Agora Insights course, and then get be tested by the guild, and I think you would be certified. I don't know. And I'll be honest with you. I've not read the BizBark. I'm an entrepreneur, and I focus on what I need. So I'm very good with this there. Keywords is a strong. I'm very good at that. I type keywords, and then I scroll to the PDF, and that's how I read the BizBark. Have I read from page 1 to page 700? Never. I never will. But I do search for keywords, and then I see how they make sense of this subject that is of interest to me, and that's how I've built my knowledge around business architecture. But I'm an entrepreneur. I've always done that. At my master's degree, people would ask me to read 10 articles, and they were a nightmare to read. And I'd read only portions of it, and then we'd have discussions about them, and my friends would get mad because I was the only one who had read everything, and I'd get the best grades. Because I could link between the articles, and they struggled trying to understand every single portion of the article. And linking between articles and between subject is far more important than understanding all the intricacies of a very detailed subject.
Stefan?
Yes, well, many people ask questions about the value of business architecture, and a few months ago I started to investigate myself. What is it? Because I'm a business analyst, thinking often strategically. What is it? Why? How is it used? And then you often, well, I've done a lot of investigation, but the world is very closed of the business architecture. Whereas for project management or business analysis, you can find so much information and discover what the profession is about without becoming a member of the IBA or whatever. For business architecture, that is very hard to find out. What is it about? They start like, capabilities, capability mapping. Like, how do you understand capabilities? What do you mean with capabilities? So they think it's every value stream. That's all obvious. And that is frustrating. And sometimes, I'm sorry to say it, arrogant. I feel sometimes arrogance with business architects.
Like, if I may add, I mean, because I've been through the certification process with the Business Architecture Guild, and I'm a CBAP as well. What I would say though, my advice to people who want to make the journey, to embark on the journey, is yes, the content is restricted to members of the Business Architecture Guild, but you may be able to start to have a look. If you go on the open group site, the Business Architecture Guild has aligned the BizBook framework with phase 2 of the ADM in TOGAF.
Yeah.
So if you look in there, if you go to the open group site and join, it's free, right? You can actually have a look at some business architecture webinars and recorded webinars and content that will give you an idea on how to get started. And so, and also to, as Daniel said, you can begin to read some of this material on the internet to give you an idea of the content that may be in the BizBook. Okay, so and that kind of gets you started. But what the BizBook also does is that it gives you structure to write the exam to become a certified business architect. You have to use that. You have to use the BizBook, otherwise you would not be able to become a certified business architect in that framework.
Well, if that's not the first thing you want to know, you want to explore what it is about, the business architecture. Even that is pretty tough. It's a pretty tough search. So how can you sell it to companies, and how can you sell the value of business architecture if it's so difficult for a very experienced business analyst to discover what it's about? So,
like I said, what you could do is that you could actually to get an idea of what it's about. You could actually, sorry.
You're not a very, very good business analyst. You don't let me speak.
Go ahead.
I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. If you have to sell a profession with a more open-minded and, well, okay, but the thing is, being very closed makes it very difficult to sell it. So if we're trying to sell business architecture into an organization and they are trying to find on the internet, what is it about? And it's so difficult, well, you have a very tough time to sell it. It's a vicious circle. It works in different ways.
Okay, so let me leave this over to Andrew, and then we'll go back to Daniel.
And yeah, I was just going to say that one of the key things that I find in terms of selling something is, well, you bring your own passion. So you sell it to yourself first. I had experience working primarily as a tester, and I had to be part of changing the direction for testing in a reasonably large company here in New Zealand. And, we didn't necessarily have everything to lay out in front of everybody about how we needed to change the way that we were operating, but we were passionate about what we were doing, and people trusted us to give it a go. And so I think that has to be part of the process. The personal relationships that you build up, the passion that you bring, your conviction has to be part of the process. So yeah, that's really just all I wanted to contribute.
So so Daniel, sorry, I'm just noticing time, and I don't mind going on a little bit longer if you guys are up to it. I'm not sure how you feel, Daniel.
No problem.
Okay. All right. So just to kind of summarize some of these things, and let me just demystify. One of the key things that both Daniel and I do is really to try bring some information into what business architecture is, and it is challenging because there aren't many people doing that, but it is something that does help, and it's something we talk about a lot. It's something we do within businesses. And for business analysts, when I do training, there's also a lot of training around what is capabilities and how does it add value, and what can that mean for businesses. So yes, there are always these struggles, particularly when things are kind of new to a lot of people. So I agree with that. Just just to summarize some things, because there's been some chat that's been going on. So your BizBark is your material in order to write your exam, but you don't have to memorize the BizBark to have that material. You can go on training, you can learn in multiple ways. It is structured. The questions are very, you know, they bring all the components together, but they're not highly complex in terms of tooling or anything along those lines. So they're scenario-based questions, typically looking at how customer, like if there was a change, let's say with your customers, or there was a merger that occurred, they would look at those scenarios at a high level in order to do the exam. I've done all kinds of exams, including PMBOK and CBAP and all of those. I'm also a trainer in these programs. And I can tell you the learning is different between BizBark and BABOK, for instance. They are quite differently structured. BABOK is a far more structured training program than BizBark, which deals with a lot of different methodologies and approaches and ways in which to see the big picture. The exam is, in my mind, and this is my personal opinion, so please take it for what it's worth, the exam in your BizBark is easier, but it's faster. So you've got 150 questions in 150 minutes. And so you've got to know all of that content, and that's what makes it hard, because you're learning volume. It's big. BABOK, you've got to be able to answer questions based on pulling lots of different detail and elements together. So it's quite significantly different. Fundamentally, it all boils down, if you are going to go for certification, we do it for ourselves. And so if I want to become a business architect, I'll learn to become a business architect, and I do it because I want that for myself. That's why we go into any career we're in. The same if I'm going to go for my CBAP. So I encourage anyone who's interested in the career that is the key. You know, it's a great opportunity to go through, and then going into the next level is going to have its own set of challenges. Just like when we first became BAs, 20 years ago, it was all kind of gray and it had its own set of challenges. So that's where I sit with that. Let me just make sure that there's no other ones. Okay, Daniel, do you want to summarize or give some areas that you feel is absolutely critical that you could share with the group that you feel would be helpful?
Yeah. Why use business architecture? This is something Stefan wanted answers to. There's a document that I'll be sending you that alludes to that. Those are the three most important ones. There's a bunch of other ones. Usually this will tickle the pickle of a few CEOs and should get their attention really quickly. If you do your homework before meeting your business sponsor, if you don't do your homework, you're a dead duck. Nothing will happen. You need to do your homework beforehand. And I'll send a bunch of links to Deidre, and then if you're nice to her, you may get it.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And you may also go on LinkedIn. I post four times a day, and 2 of those articles are either about enterprise architecture or business architecture every day of the week.
Great articles. Well done.
That's great. And also there's some other great videos like Raj.
Yep.
He does great explainer videos, and they're nice and short and sharp. So, you know, he's got his own YouTube channel. That's another way of learning and discovering more. So some really great.
Which one was that? Yeah.
Raj, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his surname correctly. Ramesh.
Raj. Yeah, right.
Raj Ramesh. Actually, I'll just put maybe
That's right.
just write his name here. If you just go onto YouTube,
Daniel, is your battery not running low on your laptop or your computer? I think you might run out of battery pretty soon.
All right, it'll be fine. Okay, so I think we can round off the session unless there's one more question that anybody would like to ask. No, we all good?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Unrelated to any of the other questions, I just wanted to go back to the capability model. It seems one of the core blueprints that we need to create as a a business architect practitioner. My question was, Daniel, I've seen a few organizations in different capability models, and there's some overlap between functions. So they take a process view and they almost glue it together with a capability. But we know that a capability is people, process, information, technology, and they're the different dimensions that actually make up that capability. What would you recommend in terms of almost, encouraging the business to remove that thinking or detach away from such a process-centric view? As opposed to then looking more holistically at capabilities rather than saying both are one and a capability is your process.
So I see that Daniel's disappeared.
Oh, Daniel's disappeared. Okay.
But I will try to answer your question if that's all right. Because I'm not sure where he disappeared to, but that's fascinating.
You didn't get my warning about his battery.
Yes, I think
Stefan mentioned it. The battery was gone.
There you go, Daniel, you're back. So do you want to repeat the question?
Yes, so I just wanted to ask, there are organizations that, when we talk about capability models, we recognize the capability model is one of the core blueprints we do as business architect practitioners. We know that the capabilities are, have, I wouldn't say dimensions, but process, people, information, technology, and we look at all of those in culmination to support a capability. From what I can see in some organizations, capabilities have almost been overlaid against processes. So a capability is almost a high level process. And what would you recommend for, to have those conversations again with the business to be able to say, well, actually, that's a process. It's a part of a broader capability. Let's move and, be a bit more holistic in our thinking. What would you recommend in terms of helping that transition?
Did you hear that, Daniel? You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My computer was not plugged.
It's okay.
And now I'm using my cell phone. Okay. You will have to ask the question again. I missed it.
Okay. I'm going to just summarize it quickly. A lot of people look at processes almost as the same as capabilities. How do you communicate the difference between a capability and a process so that people can shift their thinking from, this, hey, we're so used to processes, we have no concept of what capabilities are?
Okay. There's a video that I have that explains that very well. But in brief, a value stream is the why. Capabilities are the what. And the processes is the how. So before talking about the how, you need to know why. That's the value stream and the value stages. And then you need to know what you need to deliver value to your customer. And then once you know what, then you can look at how. So in other words, processes are later in the business strategy thinking and not at the beginning. And you need to know the why and the what before you move to the how. Did I answer?
Yes, and I would like to just add to that. So when you build in a house, let's just go back to that example. Once you've approved the design, so why are we doing it this particular way, you would then come up with what do you need in order to build this house. So what are the products, what are the elements, how does that all work before you plan how you're going to build it. So your process is how you build in it, but your what is gathering all of those components that make up what will be required in that house. So I'm just a pragmatic kind of person to explain it in a simple way. And so from a business perspective, knowing all of the things that what we do is important, rather than just how we build. We want to know what we have to build with.
Yeah,
Okay.
makes sense. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to call it a day. It's been lovely meeting everyone, and Daniel, special thanks for your first and second login, and for sharing your insight, and for sharing just the information. I do put this recording onto the site, and I will, once I've got the information from Daniel, I'll put a link in there as well where you can download the presentation and the material. So, and if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to send us a message on email. Daniel's very active on LinkedIn, as am I. So you are more than welcome to contact either of us. I'm speaking on your behalf, obviously, Daniel. So, but yeah, it's been lovely, and thank you, everybody. I'm going to end up now. Bye.
Thank you, Jeriel.
Thank you, Deeper, for inviting me. Thank you.
Okay, it's my pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.